The Department of Defense spends about $1 billion annually developing directed energy weapons, such as high-energy lasers and high-powered microwaves. These weapons can disrupt or destroy their targets at the speed of light. For example, DoD has developed high-energy lasers that have successfully shot down drones, but speed isn't their only advantage. They're also less expensive per use than traditional weapons like guns and missiles. Despite those potential advantages, DoD has had trouble getting these technologies out of the lab and into service. The Army has developed a detailed transition plan to support moving these weapons into the next stages of development. We recommended that the Navy and the Air Force develop similar plans.
Lockheed Martin produces systems that do everything from detect the threats, to identify the threats, determine whether it's a threat to the aircraft, and then employs the appropriate weapon, in this case, a laser weapon system.
What we're hearing from our customers is that they need a layered, multi-domain defensive approach that can be integrated across platforms to neutralize these threats across all those domains. Imagine an aircraft equipped with a laser system with the capability to be able to neutralize a threat at the speed of a lightning strike, the precision of a surgical scalpel, with the magazine to deal with a swarm, and with the scalable effect to be able to address that threat, providing an effect all the way the one end from simply deterring it for a short period of time, all the way up to completely neutralizing and defeating that threat.
We were able to integrate our laser weapon system, Athena, into the classified C2 network and receive cues from the radar on the range in order to execute the full kill chain.
The Helios laser weapon system builds on 40 years of combat system engineering and radar excellence. That is a fundamental change for laser weapon systems, which here to date have been prototypes added to a ship. Helios will be integrated into the ship.
So what's exciting about this technology is that it's scalable. It's lived in the laboratory for many years, but has finally reached the power levels and the effectiveness to allow it to be used on the battlefield. As an example, today's laser weapon systems can be used to defeat rockets, artillery, mortars, and even small UAVs. And as that technology and capability scales, the effectiveness scales with it. We'll be to the point here shortly where we'll be able to defend aircraft against incoming missiles and even reach out over long distances and destroy ballistic missile threats.
Laser weapon systems are earning their way onto the battlefield. Lockheed Martin advancements in the fundamental subsystems, be it beam control, high energy laser, beam direction, power and thermal, is bringing a system-of-system approach to our customers' most challenging problem. Lockheed Martin can bring that end-to-end capability into the theater for the life of our platforms and help defend the brave women and men who boldly go in harm's way to defend our freedoms.
Recent numbers tell us that 88 people have died, 631 people are missing, and over 13,000 homes have been completely destroyed by the strange fire in Paradise, California. And more than half of this damage occurred within the first 4 hours.
You said that your outbuildings and your house and the houses around you all started to burn at once.
I know that all my stuff started to burn at once, and then my neighbor right across the street, dozens of fires sprang up all around me and below me without, they're far in front of the fire line without any falling burning embers.
Completely ignored by the mainstream media, the anomalous nature of this fire is being reported on by only a few independent journalists. Recently, Shelley Lewis from Supposedly Shelley interviewed 2 California firemen about the strange anomalies they have been seeing firsthand in Paradise. In the trailer park, the steel frame foundations, only a foot off the ground, were all completely warped, bent, and mangled. Every car and truck was completely torched. Every single rubber tire was burned into oblivion, and all that remained was the steel belt system from within. The temperatures were hot enough to melt aluminum. They were hot enough to melt glass. And they were hot enough to decimate every single last thing inside the home, which makes these fires at least 3 times hotter than your average house fire. And yet some things were inexplicably untouched by the super intense heat. Pristine carports with torched automobiles beneath them, next to homes completely burned to ash. Plastic trash cans untouched. The firemen observed that plastics attached to metal completely melted, while plastics by themselves seemed to somehow survive what must have been extraordinary heat. They found an isolated, unattached electrical generator that was completely burned out, like the cars, but the surrounding area was untouched. They discovered a smart meter inside of an enclosed box that completely burned out from its own wiring. They suspect that it could have been the start of some of these fires. Other investigators are observing how guardrails have caught fire where the metal bolts connect to the wood. And many are wondering what type of fire ignites metals while sparing plastic and surrounding trees. Microwaves ignite metal. And 4 years ago, the U.S. Navy demonstrated a directed energy weapon by burning a hole in a truck and destroying a moving target at sea. According to naval research, the weapon system performs flawlessly and is capable of destroying its target with pinpoint accuracy. The mountains surrounding the Paradise fires are riddled with anomalous scars, as if a laser beam scorched swaths of forest while leaving the rest untouched. It is indeed a terribly sordid mystery, and nothing comes but silence from official sources. My first video report on this subject, entitled "The California Wildfires and Agenda 21", was deleted from my channel by YouTube. They wrote me that, upon review, we've determined that it violates our guidelines. In that video, we pointed out how these strange fires are all in the same areas the United Nations Agenda 21 has proposed to be off limits to human use. For newswars.com, this is Greg Reese.
Fires in California, Australia, and now Hawaii are unlike anything we've ever seen before. They are being called forest fires and wildfires, but they are clearly something very different. These fires are burning homes into a white powdery ash footprint, while often leaving the surrounding green trees and shrubs practically untouched. In extreme cases, forest fires can reach temperatures up to 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, and the melting point of aluminum is 1,220 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is possible for an extreme forest fire to melt aluminum. But there are cars with puddles of melted aluminum that were clearly not in the wildfire area. And melted glass, which has a melting point around 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. These are unexplained anomalies. In the California fires of 2018, cars were randomly bursting into flames on the freeway with no surrounding fires. We've seen these same anomalies in New York City on September 11th, 2001. Cars completely burned out with no explanation. In Maui, these unnatural fires spared the homes of the rich while burning the native homes of the working class. With precision, these fires destroyed the most envied, high-valued areas of Maui. For decades, directed energy weapons have been classified, but they have been on the public record for several years now. Directed energy weapons, known as DEWs, have the ability to burn homes with this sort of precision. But in order to be this precise, the area would have to be mapped out. In January of this year, green lasers were seen over Hawaii, which could best be described as a geospatial array for mapping terrain. We have seen that among the ashy ruins, there are blue-colored objects that have somehow survived the devastation. Blue cars, blue umbrellas, a blue boat, blue planters. Videos online are going viral that show how lasers can easily burn through certain colored objects, but objects that are colored blue remain unharmed. Directed energy weapons include lasers, millimeter wave, and microwave. They are all based on light frequencies, and different wavelengths of light affect colors differently. For example, in laser tattoo removal, different wavelengths are used for removing different colors. And this is because color is a quality of light. Each color has its own frequency. Interestingly enough, the frequency of the color blue is 6.66. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Politico has been following a trend of reports related to potential directed energy attacks, where mysterious and serious illnesses have impacted U.S. government agency officials, spies, and diplomats. 26-year CIA veteran Mark Polymeropoulos is one of those injured.
As opposed to, being in a war zone and getting shot at or rocketed, this was something where I felt like I lost control of my body.
They described it as waves of pressure inside their heads. They heard sounds resembling a swarm of insects, for example.
We're beyond the point of saying that, everyone's making this up or everyone's kind of psychosomatic. This is a critical foreign policy issue, and so the United States government has to get it right.
Here's what we know. We started paying attention to it in Cuba in 2016.
Mystery attack on American diplomats and their families in Cuba.
Unexplained illnesses, including head injuries.
What's come to be known as Havana syndrome.
Forced the U.S. to bring home diplomatic staff.
Cuba has denied any involvement in the incidents.
Some scientists have linked these incidents with the effects of what they call directed pulsed radio frequency energy, which is complex, but it's basically just a focused beam of electromagnetic or microwave radiation that can be dialed up or dialed down depending.
In December of 2017, I made a trip to Moscow and I woke up in the middle of the night. I had an extreme case of vertigo. The room was spinning. I couldn't stand. I was physically sick. I had tinnitus, which is ringing in my ears, splitting headache. And I started this what essentially was a 3-year medical journey. I lost the ability to drive. I lost my long distance vision. I had brain fog.
The New York Times reported that the number of American personnel who have fallen ill under these mystifying circumstances is much higher. possibly more than 130 cases.
In 2020, the National Security Council started looking into these potential attacks, but they have yet to reveal just how widespread the investigation is.
What more can be done to declassify some of that information, share it with members of Congress in a way that allows us to better respond?
Our concern, obviously, with the classification is because we believe that either it's protecting sources and methods and it's critical to our national security, and we'll have to figure that out with you.
In general, people don't accidentally get zapped by high-energy electromagnetic radiation. It's not officially clear that these are coming from a foreign actor or a device, a weapon of any type. However, that being said, there are many people in the administration and who have worked on these cases that believe that it could be a device that is as big as fitting into a vehicle or small enough to be carried in a backpack. One theory is that whoever is behind the attacks is targeting information or a cell phone rather than trying to do harm to a person. Officials believe that the Russian spy unit, the GRU, may be behind this. The other possibilities are China, potentially. Israel also has this type of technology, but Russia is the only one that we know has a footprint in all of the locations where these incidents have happened. The president, I don't believe, has addressed these potential attacks or incidents, but they have made it more of a priority.
It was becoming increasingly frustrating as well because, frankly, the Office of Medical Services didn't believe me. We're getting past that, a bit when you see kind of bipartisan senators and representatives, when you see, U.S. military officials as well as senior CIA officials and the National Security Council as well, all characterize these as attacks.
I will make it an extraordinarily high priority to get to the bottom of who's responsible for the attacks.
One of the big things that the administration and Congress is looking into is how to ensure that victims get access to the care that they need. For example, access to the brain unit at Walter Reed.
Walter Reed gave me two things, and I get emotional talking about it, but it's tools, which are ways that I can cope. And it also gave me hope because they actually diagnosed me with a TBI.
It's already been, 5 years since the Havana attacks happened. So I don't really think that they've made a lot of progress in actually tracking down what is causing this.
So imagine if our officers were being targeted by Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah. So you'd put a tremendous amount of resources to, ultimately to detect, deter, and disrupt attacks. And I think that's the same mentality that we need now. And I think that that's where the U.S. government has to go on this, because again, these are individuals being affected at our embassies and facilities overseas, and they can't do our job if they're being attacked.